Can a Chinese mouse actually be worth Razer money? Because that's what Lamzu charges now, and the internet keeps calling them the most premium brand out of China. And I've been using their mice for 4 years, so I asked them for their entire best-selling lineup. 7 mice, over 800 euros of gear on one desk, so every mouse gets a raw score, then it stays on my desk or it goes back into the box, and by the end you'll know if the premium is real, which shape fits your hand, and which one I genuinely keep. And quick disclosure, Lamzu sponsored this video after I pitched them the idea, and everything I say still stays raw. And to keep this test fair, every mouse ran the same basic setup: 1600 DPI, the highest polling rate each one supports, lowest the bounce, performance mode enable, and the rest is on screen. And first is the mouse that basically made Lamzu famous. And I'm talking about the Atlantis Mini. Now I already knew this shape because I bought the original Atlantis Mini with my own money years before this sponsor, back when Lamzu was still mostly a name you saw on Reddit. So when the new Champion version showed up with new internals, I expected this to be an easy recommendation, but it isn't, at least not for everyone. Now people love this shape for a reason: the hum sits far back, the sides curve in aggressively, and once your fingers wrap around it, the mouse is incredibly easy to lift and move. For a genuinely small hand using claw-like fingertip, I completely understand the hype. But for me the problem showed up in pistol rounds, and that is where I need one tiny correction, one clean stop, and one clean first shot, and with the Atlantis Mini I never felt completely planted on the mouse. There just wasn't enough mouse under my hand. Now I kept getting the speed, but not the same static control I get from a slightly larger shape. With rifles it was fine, tracking felt normal, spraying felt normal. In those fights you can normally get away with more mistakes. But for me the pistol problem never really disappeared, and of course I know it's subjective, but you get the idea. And that is important because the internet talks about this mouse like it automatically makes your aim feel sharper just because like Tans used it at some point. But again, it doesn't. It's a very good small mouse for a specific hand. The wheel also feels like heavy and a little mushy, and the main clicks are loud and honestly just average for this price. Now nothing is broken, the shell feels great, it just doesn't feel as premium everywhere else as the shape itself does. So as a product it's an 8.1, but for my hand I wouldn't buy it again. So back in the box. And that already tells you something about Lamzu. One of their most famous mouse is not automatically their best one, because the Maya Champion is better in my opinion. And Lamzu makes two versions of the Maya. The Maya Champion is the smaller standard version, the Maya X is the properly larger one. And the Champion is probably the easiest mouse in this lineup to recommend, not because it's perfect, it still doesn't lock into my hand completely, and on fast flicks I can feel a little bit of movement between my hand and the shell. That small shaky feeling is still there, and sometimes it's kinda annoying. But unlike the Atlantis, it never creates a clear problem for me in game. The shape is much more neutral, the size doesn't force my fingers into one exact position, the hum doesn't dominate my palm, and I can move between fingertip and relaxed claw without constantly readjusting. And that is a real difference. The Atlantis does feel more locked in, but only when your hand matches it. The Maya feels less aggressive, but it works in more situations, and after testing all 7 I think that matters more. Now the new sensor didn't make me aim better, by the way. I couldn't feel like some magical performance difference in a real match compared to like the older version, and at this level you're buying the shape and a more complete product around it, not the number printed on the box. So the Champion for me gets an 8.4, it stays on the desk. Now my main mouse is still the Viper V4 Pro, don't get me wrong, and it's still one of the only mice I've ever rated above a 9. The Maya does not replace it, but I can switch to the Maya and immediately play normally. I don't need like 20 minutes to relearn where my hand sits, and I don't suddenly notice one massive downgrade ruining the experience. Now the bigger Maya is a little bit more complicated. Now the Maya X takes the same general idea and makes it properly larger, and for my hand I might actually prefer this size. Big, safe, symmetrical, similar territory to the Viper V4 Pro or the G Pro Superlight. Now my hand understood it almost instantly, but being familiar does not automatically make something an upgrade. That is the problem here. The Maya X feels good because it gives me an experience I already have. It doesn't feel bad, it doesn't have like some hidden flaw. I just kept switching between it and the Viper and asking myself what the Maya was giving me that I don't already own. And to be honest, I never found like a strong answer, so this is where my personal verdict and my buying recommendations separate. If you have like large hands or you already know you like the Viper and the Superlight size mice, the Maya X might fit you better than the Champion. Now for my hand the size is nice, but if you already own a premium mouse in this category, don't expect the Maya X to suddenly feel like a revelation. It is familiar, not transformative basically, so it's an 8. It's a very good mouse, but still going back into the box, because I already own the version of this idea that I prefer. Now the next mouse was the complete opposite. I didn't compare it to anything while playing because I stopped thinking about the mouse completely. And I'm talking about the Paro Aurora. Now this is the first ergonomic mouse in this lineup, meaning the shell is tilted to support your hand instead of staying symmetrical. Now from the side it looks a bit like a smaller dead adder, but it doesn't feel like somebody took a dead adder and just shrunk it. The front is narrower and more neutral, so it doesn't swallow your hand or force you to palm it to one direction. And this was one of the biggest surprises in this entire video. I just played with it. I didn't keep changing my grip, I didn't move my thumb around trying to find a better position, I didn't think about where the hum was touching my palm. I launched the game and I forgot I was supposed to be reviewing a mouse, and that almost never happens to me, to be honest. And it matters most for people with small or medium hands, because because most famous ergonomic mice are still designed like everybody has like a massive hand. They're too long, too wide, or they put too much mouse under your palm. And the Paro gives you the comfort of an ergonomic without feeling like a large comfortable brick. So for my hand it gets like an 8.1. For someone with slightly smaller hands who want an ergonomic mouse, it could honestly be the winner of the whole lineup. It still goes into the box because I already have like another ergonomic that I prefer, and the new Thorn still needs to be tested against it. But before we move to the next mouse though, here is the bigger thing I noticed about the brand. At this point I had tested 4 completely different shapes and I didn't had one technical problem. No wireless drops, no weird tracking, no random sensor behavior, no shell flags that made the mouse feel hollow or like unfinished. I also tested them on cloth and glass pads and all of them stayed consistent. Now it seems like Lamzu is not surviving on the excuse of being a cheaper Chinese alternative anymore. The basic product quality is there. Every expensive mouse has a good sensor now, and that is the minimum. What makes Lamzu feel premium is that these mice generally don't feel like unfinished experiments built around one good spec. The real risk is the shape, of course, and because most of these cost like around 120 euros, choosing the wrong shape is an expensive mistake. And the Inca is a good example of why a well-built mouse still needs the shape to make sense. Now the Inca is around like 40 grams and the build quality at that weight is generally impressive. There is no massive holes cut into the shell, it doesn't flex when I squeeze it, and it doesn't feel empty or fragile. Then I actually grip it and I stop understanding who this shape is actually for. There is a tall rear hump pushing into my palm, but the sides are narrow and aggressive. So the back of the mouse tells my hand to relax while the sides tell my finger to claw harder. Maybe the exact combination sounds perfect to somebody, for me it made no sense. I kept trying different finger position, I kept adjusting my palm, I kept thinking about the shape instead of playing. So this was basically back in the box before I even finished deciding the score. So it's a 6.3 for me, lowest score of the day. Now I wouldn't recommend anyone buy this blind. If you already know you love tall rear humps and narrow sides, that's pretty fine, the product itself is built well. But if you're still learning what shapes you like, this is one of the worst places to gamble 120 euros. So 2 mice left, both are called Thorn, but they are not really the same mouse. And the original Thorn goes first, and unlike most of this lineup, I don't need a short testing period to tell you how good it ages because I own mine for years. It is smaller than most ergonomic mice, it is naturally in my hand, and it was one of the first Lamzu mice I could use for long sessions without constantly noticing the shell. The rest of the product did not age well though. The coating on mine became sticky over time, like properly sticky. It feels like something poured juice over it, wiped it badly and then left it to dry. And keep in mind I'm talking about the older version of the mouse. The new older version that I got has like normal coating and it doesn't feel sticky at all. So double check the version when you're trying to buy something. Then there was the polling rate situation. The mouse only supported like 4K polling rate if you bought a separate dongle, and paying extra to unlock a feature being advertised around the product never really felt right to me. And while all of that was happening, newer mice arrived with better complete packages from the box. And the Thorn slowly stopped feeling special enough to excuse these problems. So the original Thorn gets a 7.3, that is a value dependent score though. At a full price in 2026 I don't think it makes sense. On a proper discount if you specifically want the smaller economic shape I can still understand buying it. Now the Thorn V2 fixes almost everything around that shape, but it also changes the shape. So the Thorn V2 is clearly the better product. The body feels stiffer, high polling rate works out of the box without buying another dongle, the wheel is optical now, the internals are newer, and the overall package makes much more sense at this price. But it is not just the old Thorn with better parts, it is longer and bigger, and whether that is an improvement depends completely on why you like the original. Now I personally would have preferred the old slightly smaller shape. That was the part of what made Thorn different from all the other ergonomic mice competing to become the new Dead-Adder. The V2 is safer for medium and large hands, there is more mouse to hold onto, and a relaxed claw or palm grip both make more sense on it. For small hands though, it might not feel like the Thorn you were waiting to upgrade. So if you own the original and love the size, do not buy the V2 just because the number went up. Lamzu fixed the whole product, but it did it by changing one of the main reasons people liked it in the first place. And one note that applies to the whole lineup, the stock skates are fine, just like fine in general. They're around Razer level, not bad, not special. Now compared directly with my Dead-Adder V4 Pro, the Thorn V2 is around an 8 if the Dead-Adder is a 10. And I don't have like some fake scientific explanation for that difference. The Dead-Adder still feels more complete and more natural to me when I go back to it. The Thorn is good, the shape is interesting, it is cheaper, but right now I still notice that I'm testing the Thorn, while the Dead-Adder feels like the mouse I already trust. Now that could change with better skates and more time, which is why I'm not putting this one in the box yet. So it's an 8.2, it stays on the desk, but on trial. Now the surprising part is not that one mouse got an 8.4, it is that across 7 completely different mice, the cheap brand problems were basically not there. I did not find bad wireless, broken tracking, flexy shells, or one mouse that felt like it was being carried by a good sensor and nothing else. Lamzu has earned the right to call itself premium, but before you buy anything, if you don't know what grip you like or shape, don't buy the coolest looking one or what the internet tells you, get a shape that works universally with any type of grip. And also get them through Amazon US or like Max Gaming if you're in Europe, so you can return them free of charge if you don't like the grip. Now drop your hand size, grip and current mouse in the comments and I'll tell you which one of these 7 makes the most sense. And if you want to see more gaming gear tested without the marketing script, watch the next video.